Blog Talk Radio.
Archangels, ghosts, and Bigfoot, oh my. It's just another night for Supernatural Girlz. Real stories, real answers to life's biggest supernatural mysteries. And now for another exciting interview with paranormal experts from this world and others. Here's your host, paranormal researcher Patricia Baker, on the one, the only, Supernatural Girlz.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of Supernatural Girlz Radio. I'm your host, Patricia Baker, and I'm here with my co-host from sunny Tucson, PK. How are you tonight?
I don't know. I'm looking for the sun. I heard the word. I haven't seen any.
You haven't? I know. The weather's been crazy. Oh, boy.
Sure.
It's not even sunny in Tucson. That's not good. That's not good at all. My goodness.
Right now, where we've got the Gem and Mineral Show is just started this week. Traffic is absolutely a nightmare. You can't get around town at all. It's horrible.
Oh, no.
So
that's
for that, we're impatient because it's cooler than they anticipated. The sun has been overcast today. I should say no sun, overcast. So everybody's just kind of, shall we say, there's a little road rage going on.
Uh-oh. Well, it's good that you're hunkering down, staying inside, staying away from everybody. It's the safest place to be, right?
Yeah, and they're thankful I am, too. I probably be the worst problem on the road.
Oh, gosh. Oh, my. Well, now tell us what's happening with the numbers. Where are we today, and what's coming up?
What we're really looking at right now is today's a 7-day, and it's all about secrets being made known, how to do things differently, about learning, being taught things, being able to teach things, all of the above, which very well goes along with our show this evening.
Oh, yes.
Different things that are ongoing. And one of the best parts is that we're getting ready to go into a 5-month starting February 1st. And thank you, God, because it's all about change. There's a luck factor that goes to it, all kinds of good stuff. And there's more about the month itself on my webpage. So they could go there because after all, Valentine's Day is coming, and there's a few ideas for people.
Oh, good.
Never
and that's at
Patricia.
Yeah, patriciakirkman.com contains all that great information. And you can also book a session with PK on her website for your numbers. You can find out personally what's going to happen for you this year, what your strengths are, what your challenges are. Again, patriciakirkman.com. That's where you'll find that information.
And there's also information on there about what you're doing that makes everybody take notice, because I've got that there too, so that we're a team, kiddo. We've got both of them.
We are a team. I know. Yeah, that soul realignment. I did another bunch of sessions this past week. So powerful. I love doing the work. Happy to work with my audience members, and you can just send me an email. We'll set up a date and time for you to have that magical experience. It is tremendous work. And after having been a therapist for over 20 years and a dream analyst, I always like to add tools to my toolbox. And this is another one that it's just so much fun. And it also gives you a depth of insight that I find a lot of other things just don't offer. So I'm happy to do it. And again, you'll find me on the website, supernaturalgirlz.com. You can shoot me an email from there. And again, patriciakirkman.com, and also Patricia is, of course, on our Supernatural Girlz website, so you can find her both places. And get yourself the insight that you need to have a better life. That's what it's all about. So we've had some very strange occurrences this week, as always. Things seem to be popping up, right, PK? More and more. My gosh.
Well, you know what we were talking about, secrets being made known? The young boy here in Tucson that found out that the iPhone has been listening in and telling secrets. What are you going to say to that?
Oh, my God. See, there's a secret being revealed. People were being spied on. They didn't even know it.
Nobody knew it. Would love to know who was collecting information and where it's gone.
Oh yes, that would be nice to know. And I guess they shut down the group feature, so at least you can't spy on groups. I'm not sure about the personal one. I think they can still spy through that. So I shut mine down so they can't.
They're saying hold off. And the main thing is I just wonder how many relationships are going to be blown out of the water this Valentine's Day because of what was just made known.
Oh, gosh, that's right. Oh, my. Well, let's hope it's a peaceful ending for whatever needs to end.
God, I hope so.
Oh, I know it. I know it. So we have had reports all over the country of loud booms. We've talked about those on the air. But now people are reporting shaking and rumbling throughout Panama City, that whole county, I guess. And people were in their houses, crying, screaming, thinking that they were having an earthquake, and it wasn't an earthquake, apparently. They don't know what caused it. So they are still looking for an answer. They don't have one, but the National Weather Service meteorologist said there was no lightning in the area or any other recorded phenomena that could have possibly caused the shaking and rumbling. And the officials with the United States Geological Service said they don't have any records of any earthquakes. So nobody knows what's happening. They did suggest that people check with the Air Force, but they claim nothing's going on at their end, so I'm not sure what that is. Maybe that secret could be revealed. That's scary.
I was going to say, even where do you think they were going to tell us?
Of course not. They never tell us.
See, I told you, you're not eating your Wheaties. You're letting things slide by.
Well, you can't do that. You can't let it slide. You got to get to the bottom of all these things, you know? And there was also a very tragic incident that happened near Area 51. Did you see that? This man.
I was surprised, that poor soul.
I was very surprised to see this. This man was, I guess, in an area that I guess they considered it a security breach at the Nevada National Security Site in Area 51. They saw him with a silver cylindrical object, and he didn't respond to the officers' verbal commands to stop, and they opened fire on him, and they killed him right then and there. Now, nobody knows why he was there.
Yeah.
And
that's
I mean,
scary.
You know, I don't get it. It's like, I have to say, when somebody isn't responding, do you really have to open fire to the point where you kill them? I mean, why not just, like, wound them, and then you can talk to them after and see what's going on? I mean, this guy might have had a mental illness or something, or who knows? I don't know. Of course, we can't find out now, but it just seems like it's a little over the top, some of these things going on with firepower.
But did you
know
days. Nothing was said about what the cylinder was? Did it just evaporate after you got him?
They just said it could have been an empty can of Ice House or a flashlight. Well, can't you see that? I mean, would you be able to see that?
Shot him, he's not fighting you anymore. It should be laying right there in front of you.
That's right. And there was nothing reported. Well, you know, we still have that mystery out in New Mexico that we're still digging into, and where that Belgian tourist was found dead, and then was never, his next of kin apparently was never notified. That's still a big secret. So, yeah, they love to lock these things away. But the other thing that was such an interesting story this past week was about the North Carolina boy who disappeared. Remember this one? This is so cool. But his grandmother, I have to say, I'm not a mother. You are, and you're also a grandmother. So I thought it was odd that this little 3-year-old was left alone playing with 2 friends in the yard, and the grandmother was inside. Nobody's watching. I found that odd. Now, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm a little overprotective, but I just couldn't understand why anybody would leave a 3-year-old unsupervised outside. But she did.
Different. Definitely different.
Yes. And so, anyways, he was only out for a short period of time, I guess 45 minutes or so, but then he didn't come back in. And he wasn't dressed for cold weather. So she's in a panic. They have this massive search. You know, they can't find him. They had to pull the searchers back because the weather was so bad. It was cold and rainy, and it was horrible. I mean, it was all this deep freeze we've all been in. So a couple days later, they
found him.
Yeah.
They found him in a briar bush type thing, and there were stickers and whatever. How the child stayed there and without any covering for himself, it doesn't make sense. Something's not right there.
No, they said the kid was in great condition, and he was wet, but he was fine, and he was talking, and he was, you know, and then what did he say to his aunt? That's the thing that clinched it for me, because his aunt reported that he told her that a bear took care of him for 2 days. A bear. Now, we all know bears do not do that. And I would have... It could have been. It could have been. And again, he was taken. He was definitely taken. Now, we've heard stories about Dogman taking little children. Remember that one from the 1800s that was reported in the Missing 411 book, one of the books by David Paulides. But this is a perfect David Paulides case, because there is no as to why he would be in such great shape when they had to pull back the adult searchers because of bad weather. And yet he was supposedly out in this bad weather for 2 days. I mean, it's 3 years old and no food and no water. I mean, it's a typical 411 story. So another mystery. And then we posted on Supernatural Girlz website. Actually, we posted it on our Facebook page. The Mysterious Vanishing and Death of Stephen Mccarran. Now, this took place in Scotland, but again, go read the story, everybody, on our Facebook page, because this is, again, another typical child goes missing story, found, you know, in places that they had searched before, but they found his socks balled up in his pocket and his shoes on. And, I mean, this is typical of these 411 stories. It was just another bizarre case, and unfortunately this little boy was found dead. But this is a lot to pay attention to, because these kids that are going missing, and adults too, some of them vanished without a trace, like the one we're looking for, Stacy Eris. And there so far has been no explanation as to what's happened. But we do think that they're going through portals. Some of them, others are being taken by who knows what. But it's a fascinating thing to continue to watch. And keep your kids safe, everybody. Watch those kids. Oh, God.
Sure.
Anyways,
for sure.
Yeah. But we have a terrific guest tonight. I'm so excited. I know you are too, because we both love the book. And our guest tonight, she has written yet another book. She's the author of 30 books, probably more. And this one is called Crossroads of Conger. Now, I love Crossroads, everything about Crossroads, and I know you do too. But we're going to talk with our guest tonight about granny magic, which I've never heard of. Have you ever heard of granny magic?
No, but I'm all primed for it because I'm a granny.
You're ready for it. Okay, we're going to talk about hoodoo. We're going to talk about every folk magic that there is with Katrina Rasbold. And she is a Ph.D., a professional Bruja and Conjure woman. And she is going to share all of the stories, all of the history with us tonight. So when you find yourself at the crossroads, you'll know what to do. Now, Katrina also teaches classes internationally, and you can find her on her website. You can find all the beautiful products she and her husband make. It is twosistersbotanica.com, and two is TWO, sistersbotanica.com. Beautiful website. And Katrina, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, now, tell us a little bit about you, your upbringing, and how you made this journey into granny magic, hoodoo, and all of these wonderful things. What happened?
Wow. Well, I'm almost 60, so that's a really long story. I was raised in Kentucky, and I didn't have a feeling of being around magic when I was raised. We would never call it magic. It was never seen as anything paranormal. It was just how we lived. Looking back from an informed perspective, I can see that we did magic almost every day, but it wasn't thought of as such. And that's really typical of the Scotch-Irish granny magic traditions, is that it's not seen as anything unusual. It's just what you do. And I married at an early age and traveled the world and studied paranormal and magical paths all over the world, had Air Force husbands, and settled in California. I got a calling to Brujeria, which was uncomfortable at first because I don't have a Hispanic background, and so, of course, it's always very touchy, and I ignored it for a long time. Just said, no, I'm not going to do that. It would be disrespectful of the culture. And finally, I had 2 brujos and a bruja come to me separately and say, no, you've got to apprentice under us. You're meant to do this healing, and it doesn't matter when you die what race you are. What matters is that you do the work. And so that's how I became a bruja many years ago. That was after many years of working as a Wiccan high priestess, and my husband and I developed our own spiritual path called Cusp, Climbing Up the Spiral Pathway. And that involves using the 8 agricultural holidays that constitute the Sabbats to create positive change in your life every year. So it's been a wonderful road getting here.
Oh, how nice! And you also have six children. My God.
I do. The youngest is 19, and the oldest is 41.
Oh, wow!
It takes magic. It takes magic.
Oh, those kids never knew a day they weren't spell worked, believe me.
Boy, every mother could learn something from you, I'm sure. Gosh, that's great. So one of the most fascinating things about magic for me and for PK, I know we were talking about this before, is hoodoo. Tell us about hoodoo and what it is, where it comes from, because you also practice hoodoo.
I do. Also called root work. Hoodoo is born of the African traditional religions that came over on the slave ships. And throughout that trauma and the adjustment, the generational adjustment that occurred on the plantations, they took what was integral to those African traditional religions and made it something that applied to their current circumstances, and then they syncretized with black belt hoodoo onto the Protestant religion and throughout Louisiana onto the Catholic religion, and created a whole new system that has gone through many different phases and now presents as a folk magic system that's very effective, and a lot of people are pushing a lot of interest in right now.
And how is that different in terms of spell work from, say, Wiccan spell work? There's a big difference, right?
Oh, there really is. And it's a huge transition. When I was raised Baptist, and so converting, I won't say converting, but transitioning from Baptist to being Wiccan or being pagan was a huge step. And so the first time that you say, I'm not Christian anymore, is a really scary transitional time. And likewise, the first time you say I'm not Wiccan really ostracizes you a bit in the pagan community because Wicca is very accepted, and these traditions are not as ethically accepted, if you want to say that, because they have a different framework as far as the ethics that are involved. There is no harms none. There is no real Wiccan read or anything like that applies the threefold law. None of that is really involved. What's involved with both hoodoo and brujeria is this act justified or is it not justified? And, of course, that's something that's going to shift from person to person as to how they see it and whether or not it's justified. So one thing that's different is there's a huge personal accountability with hoodoo and with any of these paths. Another thing that's very different. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say you have a wonderful quote in here. He who cannot blast cannot bless.
Oh, Witty and Tenderwin, wasn't it? Mm-hmm.
Yes. Now, and it goes to what you're talking about with, it's a little different because if somebody does something bad to a person, it sounds like what you're talking about in the book with hoodoo and some of these other magical paths is you decide whether to go after them or not. You can.
You do.
With these.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very, like I said, it's very subjective, but also it's a matter, you've got to figure that all of these paths came from people who were disadvantaged in a very huge way. And so they had to protect themselves because no one else was going to. And the way that it was presented to me when I was struggling with these concepts coming out of being a fresh little wide-eyed Wiccan high priestess was really if someone were in your house harming your kids or harming your partner and you can do something to stop it, would you not do something? And my answer was, well, of course I would. And they said, well, it's the same thing magically. If someone is causing harm to another person or causing harm to you or affecting your quality of life in a profound way, and you can affect that magically, why would you not?
Mm-hmm. Have you seen that happen? Have you seen people do that effectively so they could stop somebody from being abusive or whatever they're doing to harm someone else?
All the time, at least once a week.
Wow. I didn't expect that answer, really.
I do magic for other people, and it's on my website. I, by remote, work magic on their behalf. There's a lot of reasons why people might not want to do magic for themselves. They don't want it to be seen, or they don't trust themselves to do it effectively. And so I do magic for other people, and one of the most common things is banishing or removing someone from their life that's harmful.
Can you give us an example? I mean, obviously you don't reveal a name, but an example of something that you did to help another person with that?
Common one is neighbors. Neighbor disputes, problems with neighbors that are harassing. And I've had several people that have asked me to do, for instance, some hot foot work, or I have what's called a GTFO working that I do. And it just pushes the person away, preferably giving them a positive reason to leave. And so there's been several instances of that where you don't really know what happened, you just know the person left. And there's been times that bosses have been reassigned to different toxic bosses were reassigned to different locations. And one thing that's specific about the work that I do and with Brujeria and with root workers who do hoodoo is that you advocate for the client who's right in front of you. You don't ever presume that they're giving you misinformation. You don't ever presume that they are wrong in what they're doing. You're their advocate. And so I don't really spend a lot of time investing in fallout. I say, okay, this person has a problem. We're going to work on it and solve it.
And then what do you must use certain kinds of herbs, spells that are in line with what you're trying to achieve. Is it a long ceremony? I mean, give us some more info on that. Give us details.
It is so on the fly. You know, that is another thing that's very different from Wicca, is that with Wicca you become accustomed to things like casting a circle, calling the quarters, bringing in archangels, all sorts of ceremonial aspects, walking a certain way in the circle. There's none of that here. There's sometimes when you're working at a crossroads that you want to walk a certain way or say a certain thing, but much of it is very intuitive and very experiential. And we burn a lot of candles. We make power grids. We use amulets. We use representations of what's happening, such as poppets for people. We use little charm bags like mojo bags and things like that. There's just a huge host of things that we use, washes and dirts. And one thing that's very specific about folk magic is it's very visual. It's all about the effect that seeing the action has on you. For instance, sweeping something for good luck into your home.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Trying to do this.
Right. It's about what you see as you're doing it, what you smell. It's very sensory.
You know, you mentioned that GTFO before. Explain what GTFO means, because not everyone's going to understand that.
Oh, it's an internet acronym, and it means get the F out.
Oh, okay. Just checking, because
I probably should have used a different example of words there.
No, that's fine.
Those are my favorite words. It's okay.
Oh, that was all me. Yeah, I probably should have not done that.
No, that's fine.
That's okay.
Yeah,
if it
we
works,
learned something new.
It's a very visceral spell.
And it's interesting because you were talking about how visual everything is with hoodoo, and it's more on the fly. Somebody asked me a couple of weeks ago if I was Wiccan, and I said no, I'm not. It's too much work.
I love it. I love the pageantry. I still love to be in a Wiccan circle and to see all of that ceremony. I love to be in a church service or in a Catholic mass and see all of the ceremony. It's very beautiful to me. But this is what I do on a day-to-day basis is just what do you have in your cupboard? What are you putting together? What is Spirit leading you to do? And it's very, very much a hotline to deity or whatever you consider to be divine, telling you exactly how to manage that particular situation.
And it is like what you just described. It's what you have on hand, and that's what they used in the old days too, which I think is great. And you talk about dirt magic. What is that?
Oh, dirt magic. There are different types of dirts that are considered to be sacred. And for instance, Crossroads dirt. When I make my Crossroads dirt, I'm pulling it from a crossroads that was actually used by the Pony Express in the mountains up here where I live. And you pull dirt from each of the four corners of the crossroad, in the middle of the crossroad, you mix it all together, and you use that when you're not at a crossroads to simulate a crossroad. Graveyard dirt is another one that's very frequently used, and it's used to recreate the experience of the grave. So it's very protective. It's soothing. If you're having trouble sleeping, if you put graveyard dirt around your bed, it'll help you relax and sleep.
Really?
Law enforcement graveyard dirt is very protective. If you know the history of the person in the grave, it takes on their energy as well. It's quite a powerful tool.
Oh my gosh! Yes. Wow. Oh, this is fascinating.
How much does that person use? Do you just get a little sprinkling of? Do you get a cup of?
You can, but
use?
Well, unless you're me, and then what you do is on Samhain on October 31st at midnight, you go into this 19th century graveyard that's down the road from me with a flashlight and a couple of Walmart bags and a trowel. And you ask for permission to enter because all these people who are in this graveyard are your friends, and you don't want to be rude, and they don't like you there after dark, so they let you in on this one night. And then you ask who wants to play, and you watch for orbs to come up over the graves that are wanting to participate, and you go and you take the graveyard dirt, and you leave silver dimes to pay, and you just take from the ones that are willing to be involved, and then you have your year's worth of graveyard dirt.
Wow,
amazing.
I love it. This is great
October
stuff.
31st, you said?
October 31st at midnight, and I live in a tiny, tiny town in the El Dorado National Forest. And so because we have such a small town, if anybody sees bobbing lights in the graveyard on Halloween at midnight, they're like, oh, that's just Katrina.
Oh, really? That's great.
And then they lower the voice and they say, she's a witch, you know.
Oh, that's funny. How funny. Yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah. Cool. Now, a lot of these magics also have a healing aspect to them. And the hoodoo, granny magic, are any of them standouts when it comes to healing, or they just all have an aspect of healing?
In each of the three systems, any type of magic that you do is considered healing. Now, if you have a wayward spouse that you're working on, you're healing that situation. If you have a financial despair, you're healing that situation. So all of it is considered healing. It's one thing that's universal amongst all three of the paths.
Wow. And
it's all about healing.
Yeah, that's great.
It's the people that utilize what you have to offer to them and to show them how to do. How often have they come back and said it had not worked for them? And if so, what was it that they did not do to make it materialize?
I don't have a lot of people that come back and say it didn't work. I have people that come back and say it didn't work yet because they don't understand the nature of magic. And magic is like pushing a car. if you're pushing a car on a flat surface, you can get a little momentum and get it going. If you're pushing it uphill, which is what happens if you're working in such a way that it for something that's not meant to happen or something that's against the free will of another person, it's like pushing the car uphill. You know, you push and you push and you push, and as soon as you take your hand off, the car is going to start to roll backwards. And if you're pushing downhill, for instance, doing magic for something that's meant to be, the car is just going to run. But I have a lot of people who want things done that are not in their best interest or things that affect what another person wants. It's different than what another person wants. And that takes a lot of energy to influence. And so they expect that you're going to burn one candle and it's going to be done, and that's not the way it goes. So I do a lot of counseling with these people to make sure that, are you sure this is what you want? Because it's not an easy task to influence the will of another person. And they don't understand that's not going to happen with one little $10 candle, you know?
That's for sure.
Yeah.
True.
Well, that's one of the questions I was wondering. If a person is willing, we'll say for one person, for this person to fall in love with them, they really want them to care. Other person has a total no way in this side of the earth is it going to happen. How can you make those two combine where they each walk away satisfied?
It's a real challenge, and that's why I work so much. And it's very insidious what I do, because there's a lot of therapy and a lot of talking that goes into the counseling of the person that I'm going to be helping. And if I see they're just really determined to do this, we'll move forward with it. But they're going to get more and more frustrated because it's going to be really difficult to generate enough energy through candle work or through magic to bring to them somebody who really doesn't want to be with them. And often this is somebody that is saying, I was married, I cheated on my husband, he left me, and now I love him and I really want him back. And of course this guy is saying, oh no, no, we're not doing that again. So what I can do is, so what you would do in that case is, if there's any love in that ex, it's always an ex they're trying to bring back, then you can fan the flames of that. You can try to encourage the love that's there, but building it from the ground up, I have to tell them from the beginning, is going to be almost impossible.
Sure.
That doesn't mean I won't do it, but I try to set them up for the idea of it might be better to do a generalized spell to bring love to you, so you have someone come to you that you don't have to convince to love you.
That makes sense.
That would be a better way to go,
So much easier.
That is absolutely much easier. And now when you work with people, Katrina, you have such a beautiful website, and can people go there and book private appointments with you via Skype or phone or something like that if they're not located near you in California?
You know, I don't do phone or Skype interviews because actually I have a hearing disorder that makes it difficult for me to talk by phone. And so I do a lot of email work. And talk to people by email. There's a store in Citrus Heights, California called Lightweavers Academy, and I have time on Sunday there that I meet with people and do the Olympias, which are the cleansings and the energy adjustments that we do. So I'm very available. I'm very I'm very right there. I'm very accessible. Also, I have a YouTube channel, and on my videos, a lot of people will comment, and I'm constantly talking to people there. I'm very accessible.
That's great. Well, it's nice that you can communicate via email and still be able to counsel them and work with them on whatever their goal is. So talk to us about granny magic. How is that different from hoodoo and brujeria?
One way that it's different is it's almost gone.
Granny.
It is. Granny magic, we have several, I'd say 5 or 6 different people who are working aggressively to keep granny magic alive. One of them is the wonderful writer Byron, my brain is stopping, Byron Ballard, who it's Byron, but it's actually female, and she's a lovely writer. She has a beautiful blog, and she is an actual granny witch and does beautiful work. But what happened is that we had isolated pockets in Appalachia where the Scotch-Irish had settled, and they were very remote. They didn't have a lot to do with the outside world because of the difficulty in travel. And so they developed all of these Scotch-Irish magical techniques within those pockets. And it's said that the Scotch-Irish traditions were actually preserved better there than they were in Scotland and Ireland because they were so isolated. So we had this beautiful tradition of granny doctors and Goomer doctors and power doctors developing in Appalachia. But once technology became more aggressive and reached into those pockets and travel became possible, we had a lot of the newer generations leaving, and we had more influx to in and out of those pocket areas. So we have almost none that are isolated anymore, and when that happened, they began to not need the granny magic quite as much, and so it's starting to really fade away.
Oh, that's sad.
Beautiful tradition, and I tell people that the most easily recognized face of granny magic would absolutely be Granny Clampett on the Hillbillies.
Oh, I loved her.
It was almost always the granny women were older women. We had ones that were apprenticing and training, but by the time you were mastering, you were crone, and you healed the village. You delivered hundreds and hundreds of babies by that time. You made your spring tonics that you gave to people. You read the omens, and that's what Granny Clampett did.
Oh gosh! Wow, that is now. Can people still study that, like at your school, or is that something that they can still apprentice with someone for?
You would have to actually, for that, you would probably have to be in Appalachia to find a mentor who could apprentice you. But like I said, more and more, because these traditions were largely oral. The people were not usually literate. They didn't usually write things down, so the traditions were passed generationally. And so a lot of that's been lost. There have been some people that have worked aggressively to research that, and it has a huge tie-in with Hoodoo because a lot of if a slave escaped, it was safer to go into the mountains because there wasn't a great deal of slavery there. People couldn't afford slaves, and there wasn't a lot of plantation work that went on there. So they intermingled with the Native Americans in that area and also with the people of Appalachia, and so they did have a Hoodoo influence there. So really a lot of the granny magic kind of went into Hoodoo practice, and it's just faded away in a tremendous amount. When I was writing the book, Llewellyn Publishers had asked me to kind of unpack that section a little bit more, and it was just almost impossible to find information on it.
Oh, gosh. Well, that's kind of heartbreaking.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
and
boy.
so there aren't a lot of mentors of that anymore because there's not a lot of information out there.
Wow. Too bad. Well, thank goodness that you at least were able to gather something together and bring it to our audience's attention and our attention, because it is so fascinating how people adopted certain magical practices based on where they came from and where they lived and all of that. This is fascinating. I'm so glad you're here, Katrina.
Thank you.
This is a great book, everybody. Make sure you get a copy. It is called Crossroads of Conger: The Roots and Practices of Granny Magic, Hoodoo, Brujeria, and Curanderismo. I hope I'm saying that right. And we're going to take a very... Oh, thank you. We're going to take a very short commercial break. Everybody stay tuned, and we'll be right back. You are listening to Supernatural Girlz Radio.
Are you ready for a new experience of freedom and powerful connection? Would you like a positive, effortless change in your life? Then come to CosmicFusion.com, where we offer the most advanced energy clearing and expansion techniques in the world, with a quantum vortex energy to activate your divine blueprint and life's purpose. When your soul leads the way with cosmic fusion and quantum vortex energy, you can break clear of past difficulties and blocks with the power of the source. With Cosmic Fusion, the source energy does the work for you. It's easy and effortless. Listen to our free meditation right from our Cosmic Fusion website, the Cosmic Code Meditation. Sign up for one of our interactive webinars today. Come to Cosmic Fusion, www.KOSMICfusion.com, to experience an effortless awakening and transformation. Are you ready for an upgrade? Are you ready for a new experience of living in the fifth dimensional magic and powerful connection? Then visit CosmicFusion.com today. CosmicFusion.com.
Astridian is a family of cosmetic products with 98% pure ionized minerals. We combine our science with a blend of essential oils to nourish and take care of your skin's health. How does it work? All Astridian products contain the proprietary redox technology, having the capability of simulating an ionic zinc-copper superoxide dismutase effect. This free radical scavenger currently in your body has been diminished by toxins and the daily stresses of life. It is a perfectly balanced mineral complex that all $200 an hour dermatologists, their professors, and ancient history have proven. Redox technology is a process of reducing the skin's oxidation by transferring electrons from a radical state to a stress-free normal condition. Oxidative stress is a form of cellular aging, and as science has proven, a precursor to disease. The free radical theory of aging states that organisms age because cells accumulate free radical damage over time. Damaged cells are not beautiful, but healthy cells are. The Astridian family is presented in 4 different uses that cover unique benefits to your body. They are the Essential Anti-Aging Series, the Multivitamin Series, Sports Series, and Professional Series. Regain your youth with the power of Astridian. Visit www.astridian.com and inquire. Use the code SUPERNATURAL and receive a 10% discount on your first purchase. Astridian, the beauty of being healthy.
Your property tax bill. Have you seen it lately? It's frightening. Your property taxes are going up while your home value is going down. It's time to fight back and win. For the real truth about the property tax system, get attorney Pat Quintilian's book, Are You Getting Screwed on Your Property Taxes? How to Find Out and How to Fix It. Attorney Quintilian answers all your questions and gives you the facts you need to fight a property tax bill that is spiraling out of control. You'll also read about what happens to property owners who don't check their property records, only to find out too late they're taxed on square footage, fixtures, and even buildings that they don't own. Is this happening to you? Learn your rights. Buy attorney Pat Quintilian's book today. Are You Getting Screwed on Your Property Taxes? How to Find Out and How to Fix It. Available on Amazon.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to Supernatural Girlz Radio. I'm your host, Patricia Baker, here with my co-host, Patricia Kirkman, PK, and our great guest tonight, Katrina Rasbold, who is the author of a new book, Crossroads of Conger, The Roots and Practices of Granny Magic, Hoodoo, Brujeria, and Curanderismo. So, anyways, here we are, just having a great conversation. I know our audience is thrilled. I keep getting thumbs up from people texting me about the show tonight. So everybody's engaged and happy to be hearing about this folk magic and more. So, Katrina, tell us now, the thing that we haven't covered yet is the Brujeria. Tell us about that.
That is my actual place of practice right now. Of all of the 3, this is the one that I use the most. It's magic of Mexico. Brujeria is simply a Spanish word for witchcraft, but it is also a specific type of magic. And I got a calling several years ago and began apprenticeship through 3 different practitioners, and now I teach classes on it and practice it on a regular basis. And it's just a very poignant and personal, effective magic that I enjoy very much. And the influence of the Mexican people and the fact that this is an uninterrupted course of magic over many, many, many years is very evident in its work.
Amazing.
Now, when I've heard of brujas and brujos, they are very powerful magicians. Mm-hmm. And I've heard stories. Tell me if this is possible. I believe it is, and you may know firsthand. But I heard a story from a friend of mine who's a psychiatrist who was at a party in Mexico with his wife, and there was a Brujo there, and he stopped time. I mean, he actually stopped time, and my friend, the psychiatrist, and his wife were watching as time stopped around them, and everybody was frozen in place. And then he brought his hands together, and before he did that, he moved. So he was directly in front of someone that he hadn't been in front of before, and startled the crap out of him when he brought the aspect of time back. But, I mean, that story has stuck with me for so many years. Now, have you heard of that being able to be done?
Absolutely. These folks are enormously powerful practitioners, and they devote tremendous energy, lots of time to learning this. They have grown up learning about this, often chosen as a child to learn to do this. And I completely believe, just like I believe the whirling dervishes. You know, I believe anything I hear magically, actually. There are more things in heaven and earth than we ever dreamt of in our philosophies. So I completely believe it. The people I studied under, I couldn't have been more blessed to spend time in the same room with these people, much less apprentice under them. And so I could absolutely see that happening, yes.
You could. Oh, my gosh. I loved the story, and my friend would not make it up. I know he was telling me the truth. But certainly these are very powerful magicians to be able to stop time and do what they – I know there's many other things they do. Tell us what you do and what other Brujas and Brujos are able to do that we may not have heard of before.
As you mentioned, there's a huge emphasis on healing. And what you're describing is almost – the story is almost a showy display of power. And they don't really do that very much. It's not I hate to say dog and pony show, but, you know, it's not really something that is often expressed in that fashion. They take all that power and energy and put it toward the healing of the person sitting right in front of them. And we do a great deal of soul retrieval work because we have people that have been traumatized so often and to such a degree that they aren't even in their bodies anymore. So we do a lot of work with bringing them back and getting them the feeling that they are safe to be here again. We do a lot of energy cleansing. We do power grids to create change in people's lives with tokens and stones arranged into particular designs. Mostly we empower the people who are in front of us to say, here, take these stones in this order or take this bag of these items, keep it with you, put this egg under your bed for 3 nights, letting them believe that they can have a participation with what we're doing. But everything we do really is based in healing. There's not a lot of showy stuff like that. It can happen, but that's not the usual presentation of Brujeria.
What's the difference between?
Yeah, I think that might have happened to really. PK.
No, go ahead, honey. Go ahead. I'll catch up.
No. That's you go. I'll go next.
Okay.
We can't see each other, everybody. That's
I know it.
why we're always talking over each other.
The difference between the conjure products, that the usual pagan type of products that a person would buy in a metaphysics store, how are they? Have the value that the products that you put together that are available through your websites. What's the difference between what some of these products are that are out there? Some of them give you a question mark when you look at them, and yet I look at your page and you've got so many things to offer in different ways. How can a person tell what you have to offer and say, shall we say, a Johnny-come-lately may offer somewhere else? How do they know what is the way to go?
I think it's really about what you feel when you're looking at, or if you're in a store touching the product. Does it feel alive? Does it feel as though it's conveying some type of energy? And one of the tragedies of Hoodoo specifically is that when we had the emancipation, a number of the slaves rightfully so, went very far north because that's where jobs were, and they could work there. And the black laws that were in place in the South were so untenable. They were horrible conditions even after slavery. And so they went up north, and the people of that area who were very business-minded and opportunist noticed that these relocated former slaves did not have what they were accustomed to in their magical and spiritual practice. And so that began an era of what's called marketeered hoodoo. And that's where it began to be factory made instead of made by the swampers, instead of made by the conjure doctors and the root workers. And it felt different. It would still work because the person using it had intention and put energy behind it, but it didn't have the kick that comes from having somebody who is a qualified practitioner make your product and hand it to you and say, here, this is what you need. And that's really the difference. The marketed magical products, some of them are beautiful, and some of them, a manufactured poppet, for instance, the little dolls, will be much, much prettier than one somebody sews by hand. But you have to go by what you feel, and you will feel an energy coming off of the product if it's made in the correct way.
That makes good sense. Something made with love and care is going to carry so much more power than something that's a cookie-cutter stamp.
It is, and so much of it is just factory made now, and that's just a shame that, you order an oil and you're just getting something that has coloring in it and doesn't have any herbal matter. It's not really addressing the energy of what's happening. It just smells right.
Yeah, that's
sad.
A big difference. Very big difference. Yeah, what I was going to say is that I think this Brujo may have wanted to show this person a little more about what's possible because he was a psychiatrist. I mean, here he was, and I think he needed to have his mind opened a little more. So I think that display probably had some healing behind it. And
I think it probably did.
Yes.
Yes, and another
based on
thing
what you're
too
saying.
Another thing that people often don't know, especially those of us who aren't very accustomed to the Hispanic community, is that the Brujos and the Brujas are maligned. They're not in favor with the community. They are the last resort. They are seen as very powerful and therefore feared. And so you really kind of go to them in the dark of night to solve your problem when you've tried everything. There's another branch called, and you've mentioned it a couple of times, the Curanderismo is the actual healing practice. And the way that I describe the two is that Curanderismo is seeing a problem that's manifesting physically and suspecting there is a spiritual component. Brujeria is seeing a problem that's manufactured spiritually, and you think it might have a physical component. So Brujeria approaches strongly from the spirit and from the magical aspects. Curanderas and curanderos heal the physical body. They are revered. The curanderas and the curanderos are very revered in the community, whereas the Brujos are shunned.
How interesting. So when somebody isn't feeling well physically, they would feel like that would be the first place they would turn?
To the curandera, yes. Right.
Interesting.
If they want to, say, stop the spouse from cheating, or they want to get even with this person or that person, then they go see the Brujo.
I see. Yeah, because I've heard that the Brujos and the Brujas can be quite feared. So, and you said they're actually shunned in some ways. So do they have their own little group? Or what happens? Do they just live alone and they don't have friends? I mean, what's it like for them in life?
In some ways it's like it was in Appalachia. In Appalachia, they feared witches in a profound way. They feared witches beyond what some of us as children feared witches because of the fairy tales. They were really terrified of witches. They blamed witches if the cows didn't milk. They blamed witches if a child died of scarlet fever. It was always a witch who did the bad things. However, cliche, but not our witch. Our witch is really wonderful. She heals, she helps us, she's the sweetest woman you would ever meet, but all those other witches are bad. It's kind of the same way in the Mexican community, where the brujo is not always one you would speak to on the street, but one-on-one you can be very friendly with them. So it's more of a social thing than a personal thing. Mm-hmm. And so they do have people that they're friendly with. They have, of course, it's interesting that you help somebody solve a major problem magically, and then they won't talk to you the next day when you see them out with other people. So that's
yeah,
but
it is odd.
They have their own little groups that they run with.
That's good. So they're not totally isolated.
Oh, you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, well, I don't really, but
yeah.
I'm just curious, it's like, how do you handle this as a person who has this gift of magic and this gift of understanding and is able to help people this way? I would imagine it's quite interesting. But all of this is fascinating.
What happens really is that and this is a big hallmark, especially in Brujeria, no matter what, you trust the process. You know that the person is going to be led to you if they're meant to come to you. If they don't come to you, you're very comfortable in your own company.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Now, with the Curanderismo and the healing that they do, is it similar in terms of using specific products or herbs, roots, dirt? I mean, what do they use?
Within Curanderismo, there are different types of curanderas or curanderos. Some of them specifically heal with herbs. Some of them are bone specialists. Some of them are blood specialists. Some of them are skin specialists. And it's almost like the traiteurs in New Orleans and in the Louisiana area, where they have very specific things that there's also the curandera total, which addresses everything. That's somebody who just knows how to do it all. And they each have their own methodologies of what modality they're going to use. And it's varied, but it's very similar to just basic folk healing.
They can address any physical ailment that you bring to them. So it doesn't matter what it is. So you can go to them and say, I have arthritis or whatever, and they will address that with whatever tools they think will work.
Absolutely. In fact, for many, many years, even into the 1900s, in the southern United States, often it was easier to get to a curandera than it was to get to a hospital or to get to any type of medical facility. And so they were frequently used. And many of the people in the medical field, specifically in southern United States, such as Texas and Arizona and across that the areas where you have a huge Mexican population, absolutely will condone the use of a curandera, that they know exactly what they're doing.
I'd rather go to a curandera than go to the hospital. I think hospitals are very dangerous.
They are.
Really do. You can catch a lot of things there, you know what I mean? So I think you're better off with a curandera, absolutely. Now you mentioned limpias before. Now tell us what those are. How does that work?
Limpias are my heart. I love limpias. Every Sunday I have time set aside at the shop, the Lightweaver shop in Citrus Heights, where I just do limpias. And limpias are an extensive cleansing process. And if you can imagine anyone who's ever been to a Wiccan circle or even a Druidic circle, if you're going into the circle and they use white sage to smudge you, to cleanse you off before you go into the circle, it's like that if you were to amp it up by about 100 times.
Oh, my.
We use a lot of white sage. We use a wood called Palo Santo. We use sacred sprays. We use stones to really cleanse the person. And another thing that is very effective is we use an egg, just a regular raw egg, and we have the client blow on the egg, which conveys their life force into the egg. Because the egg is considered to be a living cell, when we rub this all over the client, any impurity or any attachment or any possession or anything like that that has gotten into the client doesn't know the difference between the client and the egg and goes into the egg. And so we can remove it. I've had eggs break and have blood in them, be completely black, have all sorts of entity-looking rises coming up out of the yolk. We use easily a dozen eggs every Sunday, just cleansing people out. Now, in Hoodoo, we do a practice which is rolling the egg, which is very different. It's just a general roll down the body to cleanse. With Brujeria, we scrub them with the egg. We coat the egg in holy water or maybe some Florida water and just scrub all over their body with this egg. Then we lay them down and we do an energy movement where we get two practitioners, one at each end, to just push energy through the person and just snow plow out anything that's blocking their energies.
Gosh, I wish we lived closer to you. I would love to.
Well, I do them by remote as well.
You do? Oh, my
goodness. You can absolutely do them by remote, yeah.
That is so wonderful.
It's an amazing experience, an incredible experience.
There was a mention of having an egg under the bed. What is the purpose of that?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
There was an issue of having an egg under the bed. What would be the purpose of that?
After we do the limpia, typically what we will do is break the egg into a little mason jar and close it up, and then we read the egg to see what it looks like. Sometimes by intuitive leadership, we are told to give the egg in the jar to the client. They then take it home and put it under the side of the bed where they sleep to draw more impurities out over the next 3 nights. And then they break the egg and get rid of it.
What's the best way to get rid of it?
Traditionally, you would release the egg into a moving body of water that is moving away from the client. What we do is we flush it down the toilet because that is a moving body of water moving away from us.
Mm-hmm. That's
so
easy.
That's how I recommend that most people release their eggs. It's just to flush it.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Have you taken pictures, Katrina, of any of these eggs that turn black and look like little entities and things like that? I'd love to see them. If you could send them, I'll post them. I mean, it just sounds like such an incredible transformation and actually a big healing for these people to get rid of these things that have lodged in their energy system somehow.
It really is. And what I always tell people is when they're looking at the egg, this is not what's wrong with you. This is what was wrong with you 10 minutes ago before we pulled it out with an egg. And it's very relieving to them to see that something has actually happened, that something has been removed, that it wasn't all in their head, so to speak. And it seems very healing for them to see the egg and see what came out of them. So we always show them the egg, put it under light, talk to them a great deal about it. I do have pictures because I teach classes on Brujeria, and I like for my students to be able to see some of the different possibilities of what can come up. But we've had some really ugly, ugly eggs come across.
Wow. Oh, my gosh. I'd love to see pictures. That is so cool. Now, you mentioned Louisiana and obviously New Orleans. What about voodoo? How does voodoo fit into all of this?
It's over time through Hollywood representations and TV, we tend to associate hoodoo and voodoo as the same thing. And even though they're both coming from African traditional religions, they are different practices. As they present right now, voodoo is a religion, and it's a very dedicated religion. It has a lot of the people who are voodoo priests and priestesses and who are involved with voodoo will sometimes spend days in ritual. So it's a very hardcore religion that is, and I use this word a lot, it's very visceral for them. It's quite an experience, very different than going into just a Wiccan ritual for half hour, 45 minutes, done, you come out and have a feast. And they really have intense rituals, and it's very spiritual. Hoodoo, on the other hand, as it presents right now, is a folk magic practice without a religious significance attached to it. So it's a very different thing. Voodoo primarily came up out of Haiti and moved into Louisiana specifically after the Haitian Revolution. And so it was informed mostly by the Catholic religion. And that's why you see more of it through Louisiana than you do through the other southern states.
Now, Marie Laveau, that's a name we hear a lot associated with voodoo. Do you know much about her? She sounds like a fascinating character in history with voodoo.
She was absolutely fascinating. She was, of course, a woman of color, and she was a free woman, and she was very wealthy. She married a very wealthy man, and she was one of the first voodoo priestesses in Louisiana, and that's one of the differences there is that you don't have priests and priestesses and rituals within hoodoo like you do with voodoo. And so she was one of the first ones, Dr. John, some of the other practitioners who revolutionized this very showy practice of voodoo. And she would work right there in the market square. Just she didn't care. She brought it very much into the public. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know she's revered by many to this day. A lot of people talk about her with great reverence. And I remember Helene, who was a co-host of and a host of ours many years ago, and she was just entranced with Marie Laveau. And so I had to bring that up as a way to honor our dear Helene. Now, what else can you tell people about hoodoo and how to learn about it? Again, I know you teach classes, and are there specific classes for hoodoo, specific classes then for becoming involved with Brujeria and Curanderismo? How can people decide what's best for them, and then where do they go to get taught or apprentice?
They are very, very different practices at the heart, and really, with hoodoo, for instance, most people who have even a glancing interest in it know that there are literally hundreds of books on the market right now about hoodoo. It's very easy to get information about hoodoo either on the internet or through books. There are some very beautiful qualified teachers out there for hoodoo. Brujeria, on the other hand, has almost next to zero books written about it in English. And so it's difficult to find classes on Brujeria. One thing that's different about hoodoo, again, from Brujeria, is that hoodoo is a little bit more welcoming of people who are practicing what I call magical tourism, which is where you go investigate different practices, take what works for you, and incorporate it into an eclectic framework that you're using. Hoodoo is a little bit more adapted to doing that, whereas Brujeria is very culturally based. You have to have a calling for Brujeria. With Brujeria, I always say that the path chooses you. You don't choose the path. Whereas Hoodoo is a little bit more, it can even be brought down to an academic thing where you can just learn this is what you do with Florida water, this is what you do with graveyard dirt. But Brujeria is more about an intuitive practice of healing, so it's a little bit different than how Hoodoo works. So it's easier to find Hoodoo classes now than it is to find Brujeria classes. But really just looking online, checking your local metaphysical stores to see if anyone's doing this, I'll guarantee you in most areas there's going to be Hoodoo workers.
Really? Gosh, that's interesting. Now, what about candle magic and doing readings with candles? There's a lot around candles. I know we've talked to shamans who've been on the show that use candles for specific things. And tell us how you work with them.
I work for people almost exclusively with candles. It's really just the easiest modality to use to just get the job done. And my YouTube channel, it's just youtube.com/Katrina Rasbold. Almost all of my videos on there are about candles because that's what I get asked about the most. And just the glass prayer candles are what I primarily use. And you treat them, you burn them, and afterwards you can read how the smoke left imprints on the glass, whether there's black soot or white soot, how much of the herbal matter do you have left that you put on the top. Everything means something with a candle read. And so the full concept of candle magic would involve treating the candle with oils and herbs and burning the candle and then reading what the candle tells you afterwards. But I use candles all the time. Love candles.
You said the holy candles.
I use the prayer candles. I also can use tapers, but I like the long-term push of the prayer candles. I make my own custom candles for people because I want to know what is on the outside label. And so I make my own pictures and things to go on the label. And then if someone needs a specific custom candle, say for one person, I've got one gal right now that just today asked me to work to help her get custody of her child. So I would take a picture of her child, the child's name, and put it on the candle to give her a point of focus.
Sounds wonderful. And now give us an example of a client that you used this candle magic for and you read the smoke. Tell us how you read the smoke and what it said. I
actually, my brain is seizing up with all the ones to choose from. Here's a good one. I had just recently a gal that wanted to know why she was blocked whenever she would attempt to pursue her studies. And she was working she's a very talented druid. And she's with ADF, which is a branch of Druidism that is very academic and involves a lot of homework and study. And she was saying that she felt like she was blocked every time she went to this. So I did what was called an all-seeing eye candle, which would help her identify what the problem was. And the candle wouldn't stay lit. It kept going out every single time I lit it. And so I coordinated with her to light the candle. I said, your candle's not burning. We can look at some other options. And I lit the candle, and it was working. And she said, I'm doing my homework right now. And the candle continued to burn just for the time that she was doing her homework. So we were able to determine that it was a matter of anxiety from other situations that was interfering with her work. Once she relaxed and did the work, she didn't have the blockage anymore. So how the candle actually burns also has a lot to do with what we direct the the client. If we have someone who's asking, does this person love me? And you light the candle, sometimes the flame will break into two different flames. And these are what you would call twin flame people.
Now, somebody just sent a message over a text, and they want to know, what do you do for financial blocks when people are having a hard time earning enough money? What do you do for I'm sure you must use candle magic for that, too. And what does the smoke tell you? Give us an example of somebody who helped with that.
Sure. Two different things to think about for money. One is that if we have a full cup, which if we're having financial problems, our cup is not very full, but there's hopefully something in there, then we can't have room for flow. So when we are having financial problems, we always want to give and put out there even a little bit. And what I have people do is to take change and go around and put it into the change receptacles of drink machines or telephones, if you can find one of those. I have people put a $1 bill under the seat of a shopping cart, things like that. Put just even less than $5. Put it out there and say that that's your seed money and that it's growing more and will come back to you. With candle magic, of course, there are money-drawing candles that you can use. There are candles that you can get that are for creating prosperity and amassing savings. So it really has to do with how you are approaching that financial situation. The main thing is you don't want to come at it from a position of wanting, which is a tough thing to do. When we come into magic with an idea of what we're missing, tends to make that grow. It tends to make that feeling grow, and we want to help that feeling. So usually I just have them focus on not what they don't have, but what they want to bring in, the abundance, the prosperity, the affluence. Just picture money coming in from all different directions. I use green candles for money, and usually we'll put some showers of gold oil on it, a little bit of green or gold glitter, some money-drawing incenses, and light that sucker up, and just imagine that you are just overwhelmed with money. So you want to think always positive, always what you do want to grow, not what you don't want to grow when you're working it.
That makes sense.
And as far as the smoke goes, when we're talking about the soot, black soot around the inside of the candle means that you're hitting resistance, that there's problems with this, that it's having trouble going through. White soot means that you have divine assistance, that your angels, your spirit guides, God, goddess, divine influence is at play there.
Well, that makes it interesting. Yeah.
All right. You mentioned using a green candle. What colors are best to use for relationship or for assistance of others? Is there specific colors that work best?
The good news is that white is the presence of all colors rather than the absence of color, and so you can use white for any purpose at all. Otherwise, you just use basic candle magic. So if we were looking at relationships, we would want pink or red if it's a romantic relationship. Pink tends to be a more innocent, romantic, sweet relationship, whereas red is more passionate. We could also go for a yellow or an orange because that's joy and happiness and just an overwhelming feeling of being provided for and feeling comfortable and confident. And those are always great aspects to a relationship.
And what about for healing? What colors do you use for healing?
I like blue. Blue and purple convey some of the highest energy because for all of the years that royalty only wore those. They were very expensive dyes to make, and so for many, many years you could only wear blue, and this really kind of started with Henry VIII. You could only wear blue or purple if you were royalty, and so that conveyed an access to the highest level of medical care. And so within our DNA structure, we kind of have an attachment of blue and purple with healing. Also with blue, it's a peace of tranquility, and we're not usually very peaceful or tranquil if we're ill. So that's a good cut. Those are both good for healing. Again, the oranges and the yellows for vibrance, happiness, joy. You can even use pink if you're trying to heal a skin wound because beneath the skin surfaces, most healthy tissue is pink.
What if a person has passed on and you want to give them assistance in their journey?
I would always use purple or white for that.
Okay, that's good.
Because that's really going to talk to that crown chakra, which is the closest egress we have to our higher selves. And so we want to be working at a very high level if we're helping spirits along.
I have another question from our audience, and they want to know what candles to use to increase their own psychic abilities.
Again, purple. Purple's the way to go for that. It absolutely will wake up the higher two chakras. That's really what you want to get going, is that third eye chakra and your crown chakra, to open that up and get it to flow. Purple will, and then just sitting with that candle. And that's the other thing. People always ask me, should I just light it and let it go, or should I burn it and put it out? You'll be intuitively led how to burn it. But if you burn it straight down, you're going to at some time walk away from it. And the more you sit with that candle and really push yourself into the divine working of that candle, the stronger your magic is going to be. So in something like psychic development, I would light it for an hour, 2 hours every night and just sit there with it, opening yourself up to those divine processes.
Oh, that's great information. That's wonderful. Now, have you also worked with fairy magic, and have you had any experience with the fairy people?
Oh, it's so amazing you ask me that. I've got to admit something that's painful for me to admit, and that is that for probably 20, 25 years, I completely scoffed at fairy magic. I thought that was just so unicorn. Just, oh, that's adorable. Ha ha. That is so sweet. Then 14 years ago, I moved, 15 years ago now, I moved to the mountains. And when I say I moved to the mountains, I mean we have no commerce in this town. You have to drive 25 minutes to get a gallon of milk. We are isolated from everything. There is one road out of town. And so we bought a house up here on 2 acres, and it is owned by the fairies, and they put me straight right away.
Oh, my. What did they
my
do?
piece of paper did not matter to them that said that I owned this house. So I immediately began incorporating fairy circles and honoring the fairies, and I've had tremendous experience with them. In fact, in our book called The Cusp, A New Way to Walk an Old Path, we talk about an experience we had with the fairies where they actually manifested fairy shoes in the circle. And so, and I've got a plaque that says, "Don't piss off the fairies," because we are enormously respectful now of the fairies, and we've done many mea culpas for anything we believed before.
Now, how did you know that they were there on the property? Did you see them? I mean, how did you understand that they owned that land?
My son, who is now 19, was 4 when we moved here. And when I got onto the property, I honestly did not see the house or the property until we had already signed mortgage papers on it and drove the U-Haul to the house. I told my husband, go out and find a house for me. And he did. And I purposely did not see the house until we were moving, the day we moved in. And I moved into the house, went out into our backyard, and the hair went up on the back of my neck. And I could feel so many presences out there. But they were not the typical, oh, look, this place has a few ghosts here, or this place has some unusual activity. No, they were very specific, frenetic little presences. And I was working with it for several days, and my little boy came to me, and he said, Mom, did you see the fairies? And I thought he was talking about this huge wave of dragonflies that we had come through. And I said, well, honey, those are dragonflies. Here, let me show you a picture of them. He said, no. He said, they're only dragonflies if you look at them with your eyes.
Oh, my goodness.
And I thought, oh, my gosh, we have got a freaking fairy infestation here. And so I called at the time I had a very active circle, and I called them up, and we're about 90 minutes from them, and they all came up, and we did a dedicated fairy circle and put out little cups of milk and honey for them, and little shiny stones, little things for them to play with. And the next morning when we went out, there were 2 little orange shoes about, a quarter of an inch long. And I've got pictures of one of them in my book.
Oh,
and I was I was stupid, and I picked them up and took them inside, and thinking, oh, these have been left for me. And then the next few days when I went outside, there was just this radiant hostility out there, and I realized I wasn't supposed to take the shoes, and I put the shoes back, and they were gone.
So why did they leave little shoes for you then, since you weren't supposed to take them?
I think they got drunk off the milk and honey and forgot them. Like, where are my shoes, and why does this broad have them?
Oh, my gosh.
I'm curious. How could you be so brave as to tell your husband to go out and find you a place to live without ever seeing it?
Yeah, that's bravery.
I've got a great husband. I tell him, go find me a house or go find me a car, and he'll do either one just fine.
Oh, my God. You got to love it. Well, you're living right, Katrina. There is no question about that. Now, where can people see the picture of the fairy shoes? Which book is that in?
We wrote a book called CUSP, C-U-S-P. It stands for Climbing Up the Spiral Pathway. And that is the book that outlines our spiritual path that we developed and that we've practiced for 20 years now. And in that book, under the summer solstice section, is the discussion about the fairies, and that's because the fairies, always the summer fairies for us, come in at summer solstice, and then they leave at winter solstice and turn it over to the winter fairies.
there's winter fairies versus summer fairies, and what's the difference?
You wouldn't even. Oh boy, there are. It's really in when you're catching the sideways glance of them. It's how they look. They have a much different feel to them. They're not as frivolous as the little summer fairies are. The summer fairies are all about playing and having fun and enjoying themselves. The winter fairies are very serious. They're the ones that take your stuff.
Oh, they do a little thievery. What kinds of things do they take?
Oh, flash drives, lighters. Right now I'm missing the doll, one of the dolls that I use for remote Olympias. They've walked off with that. And
oh my goodness.
Sometimes you just have to kind of have the come to Jesus meeting with them where you say, look, here's a bunch of pennies and some glass marbles, give me my stuff back.
Wow. Well, at least you know what to trade them with, to get your stuff back. So it's
that was some trial and error. Yeah, let me tell you, they don't like raisins.
They don't like raisins. Okay, no raisins for fairies. All right.
I put raisins out in the fairy circle, which is quite a distance from my house. I mean, it's way out in my main circle out by the Earth Labyrinth. And I put a pile of raisins out there. And I tell you, when I opened the door the next day, every single one of those raisins was on my doorstep.
Ah!
Oh, for heaven.
So that was their way of saying, hey, we don't want your raisins.
No raisins.
You can keep them.
No raisins.
So when you leave out milk and honey, does the milk and honey disappear, or does it? You just know the energy from it has been taken?
I wish it was just energy. Oh no, they have a frat party. I leave it out in little goblets, maybe 7 or 8 little goblets, and when I go back out the next morning, those goblets are knocked over, and anything I put out there is scattered all over the place.
Oh, my goodness. So they do have a party there. That's hilarious. I love it.
Do.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. Now, your son, is he still able to see them?
I haven't asked him in a while. He's 19 now and works in a sporting goods store, so who knows?
Okay.
But he does remember saying that, and he does remember seeing them at the time. But he's a spiritual little guy, so I'm going to guess probably.
Yeah. Oh, my. What an amazing experience with those fairies. As you have so many great stories to tell about them. You should do a book just on that.
They probably wouldn't like that very much.
They wouldn't. Oh, so you have to keep your mouth shut about them, too? Uh-oh.
Plus, I don't want to turn into the Coddington girls,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Oh, my goodness. Well, it's funny. Last week I was in the laundry room and I heard this flute music, and it was very enchanting. And I thought, where's that coming from? And because I knew my husband was downstairs in the basement somewhere, and I'm up on the 3rd level, and I'm hearing this music. But it was it's the only word I can think of to describe it, Katrina. It was absolutely enchanting. So I walked out in kind of a fog looking for this music, and then I realized that nobody was playing it in this reality. And I have a little fairy altar, and that's where it was coming from. And it was a beautiful moment. I really enjoyed it. I was very grateful.
If you have something that's missing, which is strange, my mother gave me her diamond earrings, and I've had them for years. And all of a sudden, they've disappeared. I can find them nowhere at all. I've been through everything, every possible place. How does one check out how they've walked away or gone away or whatever? Because I know they weren't taken. They were taken. Does that make sense?
My go-to on that, I actually, on my website, I have a candle and some oil that is to entice the fairies to give you your things back. But my go-to is always St. Anthony. He's an absolute pimp for finding things. If you just say the words 3 times, St. Anthony, please look around. Something is lost and now must be found. And then you redirect your attention off of the item and do things completely different from focusing on the item. And almost always it'll pop up.
Ah, that's wonderful. You've got to try that, PK. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time. And Katrina, thank you so much for an absolutely delightful time this evening with you. Again, the name of the book, everybody, is Crossroads of Conger, The Roots and Practices of Granny Magic, Hoodoo, Brujeria, and Curanderismo. And Katrina's website is Two Sisters Botanica. Make sure you go .com. It is a gorgeous website. She has lots of things on there that will absolutely pique your interest. And Katrina, thank you again. We've got to have you back. We have so much to talk about. Thanks again.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a joy to talk to you, ladies. Thank you.
Oh, it was a delight having you, dear.
Yes, thank you. Good night, everybody. We'll be back next week. See you on the Blue Highway.
Good night.
Thanks for listening. Tune in next week for another radio adventure with Supernatural Girlz.
Katrina, you are fabulous. That was so much fun.
Thank you. I'm sorry I talked over you those times.
No, don't worry about it. We do it all the time, and, you know, it worked out extremely well. Yeah, we do it every time. But really, you are such a fabulous guest, and we couldn't have had more fun tonight. Thank you.
I'm so glad. It was fun for me, too.
Well, great. And I'm going to go look through your other books because we're going to have you back on for sure.
I'd love
Definitely.
that. Thank you so much.
And I was trying to write really quickly about St. Anthony 3 times, about looking around to, God, isn't that pathetic?
St. Anthony, please look around. Something is lost and now must be found. I use it all the time.
Okay. I need to find these before my daughter kills me because they're supposed to go to her next.
Do some pendulum work, too.
Oh,
okay.
good idea.
Right. You can even draw a rough outline of your house, like the floor plan of your house, and just hold your pendulum over it and see where it gets active.
Okay.
Walk around your house with your pendulum and see where it starts to move.
About 2 years ago, I lost a gold band bracelet that my husband had given me years ago when the children were small. He since passed away 45 years ago. So these bracelets were important to me. All of a sudden, they disappeared, yet I wore them almost every day. And 4 months later, they show up in a desk drawer. And I never put jewelry in the desk drawer. Mm-hmm. So I thought, okay, little buggers.
Yeah, I hear you for sure. My mother, when she passed away and left me some of her jewelry, and in her jewelry was this bracelet that I got from Avon that had mother written on it in several different languages. And my mother had passed, and my mother-in-law, I was trying to figure out something to give her for her birthday. And I thought, it'd be meaningful if I passed that bracelet along to her. And so I went to get the bracelet in the trunk, the locked trunk where I keep my mother's items, and it was gone. And
horrible.
Yeah. And then I ended up getting something else for my mother-in-law. As soon as the other item was in my mother-in-law's hands, I found that bracelet just out on my dresser. And I thought, Mom, you little cuss. She did not want that was her bracelet.
She had plans for that bracelet. Oh,
apparently so. But there's just so many reasons, not of our world, that our stuff goes away. And
that's true.
I just believe that, when we pass on, there's some wonderful heavenly moment where we get back all the stuff we lost.
That's going to be
that's a good thought.
Yeah, they better bring a dump truck for me.
Yeah.
Well, Katrina, we'll be sure to stay in touch, and also, if you have any ideas on what you'd like to come back and talk about, just let me know.
I would love that, and really anytime. And usually I can do it on a day or two notice. If you have cancellations or something, just let me know. Wednesday night was when my grandson used to always come over, and that was his time, so that was kind of a tough time for me. But I got him shifted. He's 14. He can be adaptable.
Oh, okay.
Good job. Good job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks again. This was absolutely great. Thank you
I'm
much.
I'm so glad. You ladies take care.
Okay, you too. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.